Welcome to this curriculum about the greenhouse effect. First, a disclaimer is that this curriculum is aimed for students in grades 4 or higher, but you could really learn it in third grade or lower because you don't necessarily need that much background knowledge. Yes, okay, let's proceed. So, in this curriculum, students will learn first what the greenhouse effect is with a simple definition. Then they're going to learn what greenhouse gases are. Then we're going to dive in a little deeper with the process of the actual greenhouse effect. Then finally, how you can help curb the consequences of the greenhouse effect. So first, what is the greenhouse effect? So the simple definition I created is the process of how greenhouse gases supplement the warming of the earth. So in other words, it's the process of how greenhouse gases contribute to the already directed sunlight at the earth, and it's how they contribute to the warming of the earth with the addition of the sunlight already hitting the earth. So first, what is a greenhouse gas or a GHG? So, a greenhouse gas is a gas that contributes to the greenhouse effect. They are in the air and they rise into the air or the atmosphere. And some prevalent ones include carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, ozone, water vapor, and there are also many others. And for example, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide can come from the burning of fossil fuels or coal and power plants, while methane specifically can also come from livestock such as cows and other red meat. So now the greenhouse effect, the process of it. So as you may know, during the daytime, sunlight is constantly being directed everywhere, including the earth. So when sunlight protrudes the atmosphere, two primary things happen. First, the longer wavelengths of sunlight are absorbed by the clouds, land, water, etc., primarily the land and water, but also by particles in the atmosphere. And shorter wavelengths are reflected back into space, either by the Earth's surface or, as said, the particles in the atmosphere. On the right, there's an image depicting what these wavelengths look like. So a longer wavelength, you could see the distance between the two peaks is longer, while in shorter wavelengths, the distance is shorter. So that's what gives them the name. And it's not you're either a short wavelength or a long wavelength, it's a spectrum. So you could be on the longer side or the shorter side, but you can't really define it by this is a long one, this is a short one. So with this absorbed radiation from the longer wavelengths, the Earth also emits radiation back. And this is called infrared radiation. And don't get this confused with reflecting it back. This is the pre-absorbed radiation now being re-radiated out of the Earth's surface or the atmosphere. So, like when the Earth absorbs or when it intakes sunlight, there are some options for what this infrared radiation does. So, some of this radiation can escape right back into space past the atmosphere of the Earth, while some are trapped by the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So essentially, the greenhouse gases are creating this barrier, this bubble around the Earth that traps a lot of this re-radiated infrared heat, radiation that the Earth is emitting. So this process helps keep the Earth warm enough to sustain life. So without the greenhouse gases creating this barrier that traps a lot of this infrared radiation, the Earth will be too cold to host any life. Human life, other animals' lives, any organic matter, anything. So this is a better visual representation of the greenhouse effect. So here you can see that the sun is directing sunlight towards the Earth, and the shorter wavelengths are being reflected by the particles in the atmosphere or on the Earth's surface right back into space, while the longer wavelengths, which is the majority of the wavelengths, I forget if I said that before, but the majority of the wavelengths are longer wavelengths that the Earth So the majority of sunlight that the Earth is intaking is absorbed by the Earth's surface or the particles in the atmosphere. So the energy is absorbed by, here it says land and water, but it could be by clouds, etc. And then later it also emits the infrared radiation. And you see here some energy is released back into space, while the others are trapped within this greenhouse gas barrier and recycled within the heat of the atmosphere. So, as much as this process is essential, it's not always great. So, too many greenhouse gases, as you might guess, can result in too much heat trapped. And this has never been a problem really until recently. Um, like many, many decades ago. That's recently. But right now, currently, it's not a significant problem for us living beings, but in the near future, it could be a real problem if there's too much heat trapped. And the phrase that describes this is a common term that you may know called global warming. So, this is essentially what global warming is: too much heat being trapped by these greenhouse gases, by the greenhouse effect, that significant consequences can come on later. So right now, global warming is impending us all, but the consequences will be later discovered. And so a lot of consequences right now are sea level rise, air pollution, but these can be much more prevalent later on. So now, how can you help curb the greenhouse effect or the consequences of the greenhouse effect? So first, you can reduce your water usage. By reducing your water usage, you are you are reducing the amount of energy needed to be used in wastewater treatment plants. And the energy, of course, comes from the burning of the burning of coal in power plants, which can emit a lot of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. Oh, yeah. And ways you could do this is while you're brushing your teeth, you can maybe turn off the water when you're actually brushing your teeth and not just wetting your toothbrush, because that's maybe like a minute, 2 minutes of wasted water. Um, you could also reduce your red meat consumption, which, as you may know, red meat, as I said before, livestock is a big factor in the emissions of methane. And by reducing your red meat consumption, like cows predominantly, you can reduce the demand for these animals, which then reduces the amount of these animals needed to be bred, which reduces the methane emissions. And also, you can reduce your vehicular transportation, so primarily cars. You could also try alternatives like biking and walking for shorter distances. And you can also take public transportation, which can host many people while only driving one vehicle, rather than all those people in that bus subway, for example, taking their own cars. And if you didn't know, cars burn fossil fuels, which makes them run, or not run, which makes the engines run, which makes the car drive, which emits a lot of carbon and other greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. So here are some citations, the ones I could find. So some of these are not listed, so you could see a lot of these slides or some of the slides are not listed here. And I hope you enjoyed this curriculum, and I hope you could share a lot of this information, especially ways you can help with friends, family, other people that might not know of this. And here's my creator's bio, and I thank you for watching.